Edwards. Senator Ludwig.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. The government has shown its true colours with this legislation. The Minerals Resource Rent Tax is an efficient tax designed so Australians can share in the wealth we all own. We have a fundamental view that Australians deserve to share in the benefits of minerals we all own. The repeal of the associated measures will hit Australians right across the board, especially those who can least afford it. And it's an attack on all corners of society. Low-income earners and women disproportionately will suffer from the removal of the low-income superannuation contribution. Children of ADF veterans, small business will suffer from increased taxes and compliance costs. And over 50s on the Newstart allowance who require income support to deal with unexpected living costs will not get assistance. Some more of the associated measures to be repealed include, like the list does not stop, discontinuing company loss carryback. That one alone, I really can't understand where the Liberal free enterprise spirit is, where they don't want to assist small business, don't want to help small business, and in fact have said a good tax and a good system such as discontinuing company loss carryback is just plain dumb, hurts small business. You should be ashamed of yourself. Reduction of instant asset write-off thresholds from 5,000 to 1,000. Again, why do you hate small business? It does not make sense. Why do you hate small business, Acting Deputy President? Discontinuing vehicle accelerated depreciation. Again, why do you hate small business? There are many small businesses who could use loss carryback, a higher threshold, accelerated depreciation. What do you think small business ride bicycles? That's the only solution I can think of. Amending the geothermal exploration treatment, rephasing the superannuation guarantee increase, abolishing the school kids bonus. There's not a corner of society you haven't attacked in this repeal legislation. We oppose this repeal because it is economically irresponsible and hurts those most who can least afford it. I was interested to read in The Australian this week that the Reserve Bank Governor, Glenn Stevens, has echoed concerns that we on this side have about the minerals rent resource tax. The heading, I think, says it all, and I quote, "The resources boom should have delivered more. We benefited," and end of quote, "we benefited from the upswing of the mining boom, welcoming foreign investment." Well, not all of us. Some over there, in that over corner over there, the Nats probably didn't welcome it as well as they should have. But as we know, they're doormats to the Liberals. They rolled over when you look at the Korean FTA. They really did. So thank goodness they did. And we benefited from the upswing, welcomed foreign investment, jobs for construction of railway lines and infrastructure. However, we can draw a line here. This investment phase of the mining boom is coming to an end, and the extraction phase is beginning in earnest. And so the rivers of iron ore and coal are flowing. But unlike the investment construction phase, there are fewer returns for Australians, and more of the returns are now going to flow overseas as a consequence of should this legislation pass, should this bill pass tonight. That doesn't change investment decisions, because the investment decisions are long-term. They've been made 5 years, 8 years, 10 years out. We all follow that when you have a construction phase, you then have a production phase. And we are now entering into the production phase where there will be opportunities for a return on the investment. But of course, the bill is going to squash that just when it should be working. Economists are in agreement that most other taxes are less efficient than a rent tax. Cutting the minerals resource rent tax just increases the reliance on the more inefficient and less equitable taxes. But I'm not surprised. This government has embraced taxes. It loves taxes. It used to say we should lower taxes. But if you look at the range of work that they're doing now, they are embracing taxes, and we'll get an opportunity to see their outcomes. Now let's turn to the associated spending measures. The Reserve Bank governors are notoriously reserved. For example, when he says in his monthly report about challenges for the Australian economy, and I quote, "Public spending is scheduled to be subdued." Statements like this are perceived by the market to mean that the government's budget cuts will impact growth by reducing overall demand in the economy. It's not such a subtle message, Acting Deputy President. I think the Reserve Bank has overreached itself in making things plain. It normally resorts to more subtle language. In plain language, in language that we would understand, taking money out of the economy as the mining boom changes from an investment to extraction puts Australia's growth at risk. That's what it does, short and simple. I was interested also to read an article by Moody's Analytics about the effect of the government programs on the economy in the US. Tax cuts to high-income earners has little effect on increasing the GDP. Only 35 cents extra GDP for every dollar of high-income tax breaks. So again, you are using bad opportunities where you've got good ones in front of you. However, the American child tax credit resulted in a $1.38 increase in GDP for every $1 spent. For every $1 spent, $1.38. The Washington Post said of this effect, and I quote, "Tax cuts for low-income Americans have a much larger multiplier effect on the economy, as they're more likely to spend their tax savings immediately rather than tuck them away in savings accounts." End of quote. We on this side of the chamber know this is true from our lived experiences. It is a pity some of you on that side don't have the same lived experiences. The money from the school kids bonus is not squirreled away for a rainy day. It's needed for the expenses of having children at school. The school kids bonus money is designed to go to the people when they need the extra money to spend. The school kids bonus money is there. It will hit low-income earners when it's removed by the use of this bill. And middle-income families to the tune of $410 a year for primary school students and $820 a year for high school students. The expenses for parents of school-age children are great. New shoes, new school books, maybe a laptop, maybe an iPad, new uniforms, the list goes on. That money spent by parents goes straight into the non-mining economy. It's worth noting that the non-mining economy needs some help after the hit consumer confidence was caused by this budget and the presence on the Australian manufacturing industry caused by this government. And what about the over-50s who require income support to deal unexpectedly with living cost increases? We know this allowance also goes straight into the economy too. The over-50s will not get assistance if this repeal is successful. It's a modest payment, that's recognised, of just $210 extra per year for singles and $350 extra per year for couples. But the abolition of this is opposed by National Seniors Australia. And who would doubt that seniors need this payment? Who would doubt this payment goes straight into the economy, paying for the emergency plumber or unexpected medical costs? You don't see seniors on these living conditions squirreling their money away for a rainy day. It goes into the economy. And the mining companies, well, they may squirrel money away. Where will the majority of their gift from the government go? Well, the gift from the government of the $3 billion from resources we own will go to the owners of the companies, predominantly overseas. This is money lost to our domestic economy. The Australian Institute states this package as a whole transfers income from something like 10 million Australians, including the poorest. The main beneficiaries are a handful of foreign-owned corporations collectively worth $200 billion. $200 billion. So when it comes to cuts and increased taxes, where does this government look primarily? It doesn't look to the big mining companies. It doesn't look there at all. It looks to those on low and middle incomes. This is bad for the economy, and we can expect, let me make a prediction, we can expect a negative effect on the GDP for every dollar taken out of their pockets. The cuts associated with this bill and the other cruel cuts in the budget target those who can least afford it. And not only, Acting Deputy President, is this cruel to those on low incomes and those with children, it damages growth. It damages business confidence. But hurting the economy is just one reason not to remove the measure that are associated with the minerals rent resource tax. The repeal of these measures will, though, cause real hardship for hard-working Australians. I've already touched on the hardships that families will feel from losing the school kids bonus, a hardship at a particularly tough time. And I've looked at also the income support bonus, a payment of little over $200 that goes to Australians who are most in need. Children of veterans aged under 16 who are homeless or living away from home, or those under 25 who are unemployed or studying full-time, would have been entitled to receive this payment. It's a small thing to recognise their service, but the Coalition have decided that these people do not deserve our country's support. Quite frankly, that is a shame. The removal of the low-income superannuation contribution is, despite a promise by the Prime Minister to not implement adverse changes to superannuation, the withdrawal of the low-income superannuation contribution will affect individuals by cutting the super of millions of Australians earning up to $37,000, while increasing the super for 16,000 people who have over $2 million in super balances. I think that says it all. That represents the modern coalition government. We'll take from the poor and we'll make sure the rich get richer. The MRRT repeal will increase superannuation taxes on 1 in 3 Australians' lowest paid workers. This is a very strange move from a party that claims to have and be a party of lower taxes. No wonder Senator Cory Bernardi thought you had lost your way. It is those on low and middle incomes, especially those in rural and regional areas, who are disproportionately affected by the removal of these measures. 24 out of the 25 electorates hardest hit by the removal of the low-income super guarantee are in, guess where, Acting Deputy President? In rural and regional areas. That's where they live. That's who will be most impacted by it. But I've got no doubt the National Party will go and tell them that. They'll walk out of here, go into their electorates and say, by the way, we've got rid of the MRRT, and in the meantime we're also taking super from you as well. Isn't that fantastic? I would expect the National Senators actually to have opposed this, to be up in arms. But we all know they're histrionics. They like to play the game in here and they go back to their electorate, not a whisper, not a whisper. It's been a long time since the Nationals have stood up for working people in rural and regional Australia. One of the surprising ones, their cuts to local government, it's fantastic, will hurt local communities. I had a letter from the Mayor of Cowra telling me the cuts to the financial assistance grants will hurt his shire. $38,000 out of their budget in the first year that won't be spent on local roads and community bridges and community infrastructure. And you wonder where the Nationals are for local communities in regional areas. Nowhere, Acting Deputy President. They may be here, but they're not there supporting their regional communities. Cuts to superannuation hurts infrastructure. Superannuation invested in super funds drives investment in infrastructure in Australia. Industry Super Australia estimates, combined with the proposed delay in increasing the superannuation guarantee to 12%, the removal of this superannuation will reduce national savings by $53 billion by 2021 to 22. $53 billion less invested in projects like Australian infrastructure. The reduction in available capital for infrastructure investment is forecast to be $5 billion based on current industry-wide asset allocations. This is at a time when the government is scratching around for funding streams to finance new infrastructure projects. Rural communities especially need this vital infrastructure. Low-income superannuation contribution is important for many number of reasons. While for high-income earners, superannuation does have tax advantages. However, for low-income earners, there aren't effective incentives to encourage superannuation contributions. That's why they structured the low-income superannuation contribution, because it addresses this very issue and stopped low-income earners being at a disadvantage when it comes to savings. The Financial Planning Association was clear on this point. They said repealing the low-income superannuation contribution will disproportionately affect already disadvantaged members of Australian society and dissuade low-income earners from engaging with their superannuation. The removal will particularly hit women. 2.1 million women will be affected. Many are mothers working part-time while looking after young children. This is exactly the part of a woman's career where an additional $500 a year going into superannuation will be of the most benefit for building savings now and into the future for their retirement. The 20 big miners are going to get a gift of $3.3 billion. $3.3 billion. And Australian businesses and taxpayers lose out. The budget and approach the government has adopted since taking office says a lot about the values of this government. A tax grab on millions of Australian low-paid workers to give a tax refund to large mining companies seems to be now Liberal Party values. Liberal Party values. The minerals rent resource tax isn't paid by a young family. A pensioner doesn't pay this tax. A truck driver, a farmer, a shearer, they don't pay a cent of this tax. The only group that pays this tax is mining companies with profits over $75 million. Over $75 million begin to pay this tax. Fewer than 20 companies in 2012-13. However, the people who suffer from the MRT repeal are more diverse. Small businesses, parents, school children, people saving for their retirement, those on low incomes, those exploring for geothermal energy, and the children of veterans. The Coalition rails against class warfare. However, when you look at the Coalition and this bill, they practice class warfare to a T. They are taking from small businesses, retirees, pensioners, parents, school children to increase the rent extracted from our shared resource by a select few earning profits over $75 million. That's the stark difference between the Coalition, supported by the Nationals surprisingly, and us. The removal of the associated measures will impact those members of the community who can least afford it. And you only have to look at the results of this. Those people, and again I go back to where I started, I can't fathom why you hate small business so much, that you won't give them the tools to be able to have loss carryback, to have accelerated depreciation, to have a asset write-off at $5,000. It does not make sense to me You've always said, those on the other side, that you've embraced small business, that you support small business. Well, you're certainly not showing your colours now.
Thank you, Senator Ludwig. Senator